Welcome to Frederick at its best. I'm Frederick County Executive Jan Gardner, and today we're gathered to raise awareness and to discuss how to prevent lead poisoning. Exposure to lead early in life can result in a host of health issues, and these health issues can have long-term effects. Lead can harm the brain and nervous system, culminating in problems with hearing, speech, learning, and behavior. These developmental setbacks can cause a lower IQ, poorer scholastic performance, and even difficulty paying attention. The Frederick County Health Department and allied agencies work to raise awareness about lead poisoning. They highlight efforts to prevent childhood lead poisoning and to encourage activities and actions to eliminate lead paint. This fall, Frederick County will join other health educators across the county to observe National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. This year's theme is Lead-Free Kids for a Healthy Future. This theme focuses on the many ways parents can reduce a child's exposure to lead and prevent its serious health effects, and the health effects can be quite daunting. The Environmental Protection Administration and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention all promote educational activities during this week. Lead poisoning is entirely preventable. Yet childhood lead exposure is estimated to contribute to about 600,000 new cases of children with intellectual disabilities every year. And of course, that's a national statistic. Exposure to lead, particularly in childhood, remains a key concern to healthcare providers and to public health officials worldwide. Lead is most easily spread through dust particles from articles that contain lead, such as lead paint made before 1978. The U.S. banned lead paint in 1978, but there's clearly some homes, particularly older homes, that still have lead paint in their trim and on their walls. Kids under the age of 6 are at the highest risk of being poisoned by lead, and that can create developmental issues and developmental delays that can affect children throughout their entire life. Lead poisoning can have hazardous effects on adults as well. And adults who are exposed to lead can encounter fertility problems, high blood pressure, digestive issues, nerve disorders, problems with memory and concentration, and pain in joints and muscles. So you can see that the risk of lead poisoning on your health is pretty significant. Pregnant women should also be especially careful to avoid exposure to lead. Detecting lead poisoning early is as easy as a blood test. It is highly recommended for children to get tested as early as age 1 or 2, particularly if there's a possibility of exposure. Time is of the essence with lead poisoning in young children because of how detrimental it can be to their development. It is important to identify problems early and take necessary precautions to shield your children and certainly our community's children from continued exposure to lead. So I do have a proclamation that I'd like to present. Whereas exposure to lead is most significant and widespread environmental hazard for children in Maryland, and whereas exposure to lead can cause long-term neurological damage that may be associated with learning and behavioral problems, and whereas children are at greatest risk from birth to age 6 while their neurological systems are being developed, and whereas according to the Center for Disease and Control and Prevention, there is no safe blood level for lead. In 2015, 15% of Frederick County children from 1 month to 72 months of age were tested for lead. And whereas there are currently 7 clients in the Frederick County Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Nurse Case Management Program, of those cases managed over the last 2 fiscal years, there was an average of a 46% lead level reduction. And whereas lead poisoning is entirely preventable. So now, therefore, as the County Executive of Frederick County, Maryland, I hereby proclaim the week of October 22nd through October 28th as Lead Poisoning Prevention Week in Frederick County and commend this observance to all of our citizens. So with that, I'd like to have those who have joined me introduce themselves, talk about what they do, and maybe add any comments or suggestions they would have on this topic. So let's start with you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Miriam Dobson. I'm the Director of Community Health Services at the Frederick County Health Department, and our division houses maternal and child health and our lead case manager, Lynn Phillips. And I'd like to add in Lynn's words that lead never goes away. This is a constant risk to our children, and it's very important that we remain vigilant along with our partners in the community, like Environmental Health and Maryland Department of the Environment, and other county resources like our pediatricians, that we stay vigilant and that children are not poisoned with lead because it is entirely preventable.
My name is Barry Glotfelty. I'm Director of Environmental Health for the Frederick County Health Department. And although we talked a lot about lead paint as a major source of potential lead exposure for children, we do have a lot of individual wells in the county and varying water quality. And if you have old plumbing that may contain lead and you have corrosive water, that could be a source of lead exposure to your children. So we'd recommend in those instances to maybe have your water tested for lead. Probably not a real issue with most of the public water supplies, as they do have corrosion control, and that we have had lead eliminated from solders that are used in plumbing and from brass fixtures. We do have a lot of old plumbing and a lot of variation in the water that is going through that plumbing.
Okay.
Yes, hi. My name's John Krapinski, and I'm with the Maryland Department of the Environment's Child Lead Poisoning Prevention Program. And I would like to thank Frederick County for your partnership with the Maryland Department of the Environment's Child Lead Poisoning Prevention Program, with eliminating lead throughout the state of Maryland and Frederick County. I'd like to also add that effective March of 2016, that all children in the state of Maryland and children living in Frederick County need to have a blood lead test at 1 and 2 years of age. We spent a lot of time hearing and talking about lead in paint, and that's still primarily where a lot of children are exposed, with renovations in homes that were built before 1978. However, we're starting to find CDC lowered the reference level from a level of 10 to a level of 5. So now we're starting to find that we're seeing lead in other sources outside of lead paint. We're finding it in toys that are imported. We're finding it in herbs, spices. So anything that you see that your child possibly mouthing, anything that comes from overseas, you might want to question and maybe call the health department, call the Maryland Department of the Environment, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask you all a question. If somebody is renting a home or buys a home that is an older home built prior to 1978, and they're concerned because they don't know if they have lead paint in their home, how can they go about finding someone to come and test the paint in their home or evaluate whether their home is a lead risk?
Thank you. I think one of the first stops you should make if you have such a concern is to call our special delivery nurse case management program. We do perinatal case management as well as lead case management. So that's your first stop, to speak with our lead case manager. She can connect you with other resources such as the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative that can do an environmental check and connect you with the resources to even remediate, in some cases, the lead risk.
And I'd like to also add that if you're living in a rental property built before 1978 in the state of Maryland, that property owner is required to register their property with the Maryland Department of the Environment, and they're also required to have that property inspected before you move in. So if you're living in a rental property or you're getting ready to move into one built before 1978, you want to make sure that the property owner, number one, gives you a copy of a lead certificate showing that it passed a lead inspection. They should also be giving you some education materials, protect your family from lead in your home. And they should also be giving you a copy of tenant rights, because you as a tenant living in a pre-1978 rental property, you have certain rights not to have your child lead poisoned. So if you should have any questions, please give Frederick County Health Department a call. or the Maryland Department of the Environment.
All right. Thank you all for that added information. Frederick prides itself on its rich history. We describe ourselves as hip and historic, and we do want people who are in our housing stock that dates pre-1978 to feel safe and secure in their homes in terms of lead poisoning. So there is a way to find out, and it's good for people to know that as a tenant that they have certain protections. So thank you for all you do to keep our children safe and healthy and for raising awareness on this important subject. Remember, the effects of lead poisoning are irreversible, but that lead poisoning is 100% preventable. And that's really what we're trying to do, is prevent lead poisoning. So parents can learn what their child's lead level is through a blood test. If anyone watching today would like to have your child tested for lead, you can schedule an appointment with your healthcare provider. If you don't have insurance, you can call 301-600-1733 for information on available resources in Frederick County. And again, that number is 301-600-1733. Thank you all for the efforts of the Health Department, our state partners at MDE, and our other agencies who every day are making an effort to prevent lead poisoning in Frederick County and in the state of Maryland. So thank you for joining us today, and make sure that we prevent lead poisoning in Frederick County.